Hello everybody, I am Mostly Meta Mike, back with a new microphone, so hopefully all of my audio problems from the last video are taken care of now. Welcome back for another installment of Magic System Monday, where once again we will be talking about the magic of Encanto. Now last time I did kind of a broad overview of how I thought the magic worked. This time I'm going to be taking a deep dive into one specific aspect of the magic, the extra-dimensional rooms of Casa Madrigal, and how they relate to their occupants. Now, as I like to do, I'm going to lay out some fundamentals that I think we need to agree upon before we can go forward. Alright, first things first, I don't think this is going to be too controversial, but it seems pretty clear that the rooms must reflect the people who occupy them. Now, here's where I might get some disagreement. The rooms must almost certainly change over time. I mean, the person you are when you're 5 is very different than the person you are when you're 50. Now, I don't have a lot of evidence for this. This is just kind of a common sense thing. I mean, Pepa and Julieta get married. If the rooms don't change to accommodate their spouses, that's kind of a big ask for them, right? So just go with me on the rooms changing to some degree over time. Lastly, the rooms are not refuges. By this I mean the rooms don't specifically have features to help their occupants cope with the stress of having their powers. Now, originally, in one of the concept drawings, Luisa's room was going to be this stark place of stone and heavy objects. But then, it had a secret tunnel that only she could get through, and it led to this big amusement park that she could enjoy. I think the reason they scrapped this is obvious. If every room has an equivalent, a place where they can go and be themselves, then it defeats the whole purpose of the movie. I mean, why is Luisa so stressed if at the end of the day she goes and rides the roller coaster and eats the cotton candy and has just a great relaxing time? So the rooms are not refuges from the troubles of their life. Alright, if we can all agree on those 3 points, we can move on. We end up seeing a grand total of 3 of the Madrigal's rooms. The first one we get a really good look at is Antonio's. He has his ceremony, he opens the door, and he is whisked inside by his animal friends to this big, gorgeous-looking treehouse that's all kinds of fun and everything a little boy would want, right? But we don't stay there very long. It's mostly there to show us how grand the magic can be and how it doesn't obey the laws of physics. So for the most part, I'm going to disinclude Antonio's room, because he only has it for like a grand total of 2-3 days. Next, we go to Bruno's room when Mirabel is searching for the vision, but Bruno's room is kind of a special case. He doesn't live there anymore. He has effectively abandoned his magic. And I think the room reflects this, and it sort of proves my point that, at least under extreme conditions, the rooms change. I mean, go back and watch that scene where Mirabel first enters that room. Do you notice anything missing? How about a room? There's no bed, there's no desk for writing, there's no old TV set for Bruno to watch his telenovelas. There is no place for him to live in there. What that says to me is, after he left, the room just got rid of that stuff. He didn't need it anymore. All it left was what he would need to reclaim his powers if he ever took them back. But we see even that is crumbling away, in that the ropes on the sides of the stairs are broken, and there's a big giant gap between the top of the stairs and getting into the vision room. Heck, all Mirabel has to do is stomp her foot, and a big chunk goes flying off into nothingness. So we need to move on to the only room that we see is occupied by an adult Madrigal, and that is Isabella's room. Luckily, I think Isabella's room tells us everything we need to know about how the rooms present and reflect their owners. We actually see Isabella's room twice. We get a quick glimpse of it in the family Madrigal, and then we get an extended view of it in the song What Else Can I Do? It is a vast space covered from floor to walls to ceiling in beautiful flowers, which, if you think about it, is the absolute perfect reflection of how Isabella lives her life. Everything real about the room is covered in these perfectly arranged, symmetrical blossoms. Her bed is suspended above the ground, above it all, and there is a gallery of floral dummies of her in poses for her to practice. Put this all together, what it says to me is the rooms don't reflect what the Madrigals want, but what their reality is. So, if we accept that, we can make some guesses about what the rooms we didn't see look like. Before we do that, I want to jump back to Bruno's room real quick. So, like I said before, there had to have been some sort of living area for Bruno, right? Everyone got in the other two rooms we see, at least they got a bed. Antonio got a hammock and Isabella got that hanging bed. So here is how I think Bruno's room looked originally, when he first got it when he was 5. First, I think that sandy entrance was a little bit longer and kind of more of a fun slide to get into his room, and then there was a staircase to its side that would let you get back up. Then, in that initial area where you first walk in, I think that was his living space. I think there was a bed, like I said before, maybe a TV, because he definitely knows what TV is. And acting is very appealing to him, so it seems likely that that would be there. The biggest change, I think, however, is the stairs to his vision room. I think, originally, there was only 1, maybe 2 flights of stairs that he had to walk up to get to his vision room. But as time went on, and he grew to resent those powers more and more, I think more and more stairs were added. My headcanon, at least, is that the room changed because of his situation, his attitude towards his powers. The vision room became harder and harder to access because he didn't want to access it. Next, let's move on to Bruno's sisters. We'll start with Peppa. If I had to guess, which I do because I'm making this video, I would say that Peppa's room is probably broken up into 2 things. One, a sort of living space for her and her normal husband Felix, and a big open area, maybe resembling a field or some hills or something like that, where she can just storm. So I think maybe it's like a regular apartment on 1 floor, and then you go up a flight, and it's a little more like Antonio's, like open and wide. I'll be honest, Peppa's is the hardest for me to nail down, because her powers are just different than everyone else's. She is the only Madrigal who doesn't have direct control of her powers. I guess you could also make the argument that Dolores doesn't have direct control in that she can't turn them off, but she can do things like plug her ears and stuff like that. But Peppa, it just happens regardless of what she wants based on what she feels, which is interesting. But anyway, let's move on to her sister. Julieta's room has to just be a kitchen, right? Like, that's it, right? A kitchen? Like, I know there's a kitchen downstairs where everyone eats, but like the main thrust of her room has to be like a test kitchen, stocked with all the ingredients she needs, pots, pans, etc. And then again, like Peppa's room, I think it has a little living space for her and her husband. These would be the most stable rooms because they're the most lived in. Peppa and Julieta have had 45 years to get comfortable in these spaces and live in them. But now we can move on to what I think are the more interesting rooms. Let's start with Peppa's children. It's tempting to say that Dolores' room would be full of padding and sound-reducing foam like I have set up here. Just everything soft and padded and quiet. But we see that's not really how the rooms work, so I think it's actually the opposite. I think when you go into Dolores' room, it's full of small noise-making things. You know, things like wind chimes that are always moving, ticking clocks. And while she might be able to use these things as sort of white noise to block out sound from the rest of the Encanto, it's not a relief from the feeling of constant noise in her life. Then we move on to Camillo's room. Now, I think Camillo is the Madrigal we know the least amount about. He just is presented as your typical sort of trickstery but well-meaning teenage boy, which, you know, he does seem to be. But somewhere along the line, I heard him referred to as someone who doesn't yet know who he is, which makes sense with his powers. So for his room, I imagine it's almost like a fun house. A lot of mirrored hallways, pictures of people from around the town, dressing dummies with different clothing, just littered with stuff he can look at and change his form and be something different, and just always be changing. And then finally we get to Luis's room. Now I said before that they had done concept workups of what Luis's room looks like. You know, there's one where it's all rocks and very stark. And there's one where it's all weights and heavy lifting things. I think that one's the most accurate because we do see her working out. We see her running on Casita like it's a treadmill in the family Madrigal. So yeah, I would imagine there are a lot of weights in there, a lot of training equipment. But the thing I think about her training equipment is it actually gets heavier every day when she tries to use it. And for her, that probably seems like a good thing. It's a good workout every day. You got to push yourself a little bit more. But as we see, she's not the kind of person to take a break, and you need to take a break. So in summary, the rooms to me seem like contributing factors to the family's growing unhappiness, rather than refuges where they can escape and have some time to themselves. No, it just reinforces that stress and pressure. So when Casita breaks at the end of the movie, that's kind of like the last vestiges of Abuela's old way of thinking coming crumbling down. And when they rebuild it, we actually see that the doors are blank, even though the Madrigals get their old powers back, because those rooms need to remake themselves for the new way things are. I have been Mostly Meta Mike. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please give me a like, comment, subscribe, do all those good YouTube things, and be on the lookout for more videos. My first video should be in the upper right corner right now, and I plan on doing even more Encanto videos, but I promise I'm not going to be the Encanto guy. I have other things, other ideas planned out, so be on the lookout for that. And I'll see you next time.